From about 1525 to 1866, 12.5 million Africans were taken from their homeland and forcibly transported across the Atlantic, a journey that approximately 2 million of them would not survive. By the turn of the 18th century, European merchants were building vessels capable of transporting hundreds of enslaved people per journey. These ships had extra portholes for ventilation, weapons mounted on deck in case of rebellion, and additional compartments added below deck to take on more human cargo. Before boarding the ships at African port cities, enslaved people were stripped of their clothing and remaining possessions and had their heads forcibly shaved. During boarding, which could take weeks or even months, enslaved people lived on the deck of the ship in a temporary wooden house constructed by the crew. The crew also installed netting around the deck of the ship, designed to catch those enslaved who might opt for death over forced servitude. Once moved below deck, enslaved people would find themselves stuffed into compartments with ceilings as low as 4.5 feet, where they would spend most of their voyage. They were segregated by gender and age. Adult men were kept separately and shackled in pairs. Women usually left unchained in their designated compartment, and children often free to move about the ship. There were no sanitary facilities of any kind. Enslaved people were forced to relieve themselves where they sat, creating hellish conditions when combined with the heat and lack of ventilation below deck. Disease was rampant. Dysentery, malaria, yellow fever, smallpox, measles, and influenza ravaged the enslaved and crew members alike. The enslaved people generally spent about 8 hours a day above deck, but were still separated by gender, with a barricado, a reinforced wall that could be used to protect crew members in case of a revolt. Enslaved people were also subject to forced exercise, which sometimes included dance and song for the entertainment of the crew. Enslaved captives deemed disobedient were tortured and beaten, usually whipped with the especially cruel cat o' nine tails, a tool designed to inflict maximum pain. Enslaved people who refused to eat their typical meal of rice and beans were forced to do so, sometimes with a speculum oris, a medieval tool used to force open a person's mouth. Women, while usually left unshackled, were raped and sexually abused by members of the crew, sometimes arriving in the New World, carrying the children of their attackers. But it was the women, using their minuscule freedoms, who would often coordinate mutinies against their captors. But these rebellions were rarely successful. The true extent of the horrors of the Middle Passage came to light in a 1783 court trial over the slave ship Zong. The Zong left present-day Ghana in August of 1781, with 442 enslaved on board. After a 2-month journey riddled with navigation errors, 62 enslaved people and 7 crew members had perished without reaching their destination. Disease was spreading throughout the ship, and fresh water was running dangerously low. Captain Luke Collingwood was afraid of the financial cost of more deaths. Enslaved people that died of disease were not covered by the ship's insurance, but the enslaved who drowned were. Collingwood ordered approximately 130 enslaved people thrown overboard. He claimed it was necessary to do so to halt the spread of disease. At the trial between the Zong's owners and their insurance company, the owners argued that because it was legal to kill sick animals for the health of a ship, it was legal to treat enslaved people the same. The court agreed with the ship's owners, but the trial itself exposed the horrors aboard the Zong, and its story was republished by British abolitionists with the name of the ship redacted, meant to show that this tragedy could happen on any ship transporting enslaved people across the Middle Passage. 24 years after the Zong trial, the international slave trade was outlawed in both Great Britain and the United States. It would take England an additional 26 years, and the U.S. another 58 years, plus a civil war, before the practice of slavery was officially abolished.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I want to give all praise to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH, for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. I want to give double honor to the apostle of Great Millstone for teaching the truth by using precepts upon precepts and line upon line. Alright, and this lesson, I'm just going to title it as This is Proof. Alright, this is proof. Obadiah 1:10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And this is for the Edomites. Alright, and who are the Edomites today? They are your Jews, or the RAWCHAA. Those are your white people, or so-called white people. They're not really white, they're actually called Edom. Alright, you Edomites, Caucasians, this is for you. Obadiah 1:10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and shall be cut off forever. Alright, roughly paraphrasing. Obadiah 1:10. You know what? Let's get it so I can say it properly. So I don't have to, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob. Who is Jacob? Israel, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American. You just watched the video. You just saw the violence. Shame shall cover thee. Why? Because you're gonna get the same treatment back, and thou shalt be cut off forever. All right. Let's go down to verse 15. It says this: for the day of the Lord is near upon all the heathens. All thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee. Thou reward shall return upon thine own head. So all those things you just saw in the video, everything you have seen, it's gonna happen upon the other heathens when Yahweh Shemashai comes. And we're gonna do it in righteousness, not in wickedness, or raping women that's already. No, we won't be doing that. All right, but you getting thrown off the ships, y'all getting fever, y'all getting whipped. That's gonna happen to Edomites in those days. All right. So let's get a chapter real quick, because I want to read this chapter, this whole thing, verse 1 all the way down to 15, because this is what's going to happen to Edomites in the future, and this is a prophecy to them. All right. Ezekiel chapter 35, verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against the Mount Seir, and prophesy against it. Who used to live in Mount Seir? Edom. Alright. And say unto it, Thus said the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord Yahweh Shemashai. Because thou hast had perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, and the time of their calamity, and the time of their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, said the Lord, thus said the Lord Yahweh Shemashai, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Sith thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Alright? Because you saw how Esau, Edom, he never hated blood. He never hated the idea of shedding blood. He never hated the idea of killing. He just loved doing it. So the Most High is going to do the same thing back to them. All that hatred that they had against Jacob. Alright? Yahweh Shemashai loved the children of Israel. And he just saw what just happened to his beloved children. You really believe he's not going to come back for that? He is. Yahweh Shemashai is. Alright. Verse 7. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passes out, and him that returneth. And I will fill his mountains with his slain men, and thy hills, and the valleys, and all thy rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword. Verse 9, I will make thee perpetual desolation. Thy city shall not return, and ye shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh Shemashai. Because thou hast said, These two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it, whereas the Lord was there. And the proof of it, the video. And how they kept on mocking how they took children of Israel 2 countries. Back in the days, Israel was split into 2 nations. Alright, but what happened to them? Let's search up the history of 70 AD. Alright. Verse 11. Therefore, as I live, said the Lord YAHAWASHI, I will even do according to thine anger, and according to thy envy, which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them. And I will make myself known among them when I have judged you. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord YAHAWASHI, and that I have heard all thy blasphemies which thou hast spoken against the Mount Israel. Alright, because all those bywords you keep on calling us, you kept on calling this nation the lowest. Alright, laughed at us, scorned at us, whipped us, saying they are laid desolate. The video is the proof. They are given us to consume. The video is the proof. Thus with your mouth ye have boasted against me. How did he boast against the Most High YAHAWASHI? You whitewashed the scriptures and made him and whitewashed the scripture and drew him as a gay person and a hippie. Alright, your mouth have boasted against him. You talk slick against YAHAWASHI. And do you think YAHAWASHI, you think he didn't hurt that? Of course he did. Because if you continue reading on, the scripture says what? And have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them. So you continue on reading, it says, I have heard them. Ye have heard all your blasphemies. Verse 14, to continue on. Thus said the Lord YAHAWASHI, when the whole earth will rejoice, I'll make thee desolate. As thou did rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, so-called Negroes, Latino, Native American, because it was desolate, so I do unto thee. Thou shalt be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, even all of it, and they shall know that I am the Lord YAHAWASHI. This is a prophecy that's about to come to pass upon you Edomites, and this is one of the proof. And this lesson is very simple. All right. But that's how I want to get into today. Lord, you was edified by this lesson. I want to give all praise to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH, forgive me, Spirit, through this lesson. I do want to give double honor to the apostle of Great Millstone for teaching the truth by using precept upon precepts and line upon line. Shalom.